A dark red drop hit the white silk napkin in my lap and spread fast, too fast, like it knew it had an audience. I did not react right away. I never do. Panic wastes energy, and energy is something my body does not like to spare. Around me, the room kept moving for about half a second. Glasses clinked against each other somewhere to my left. Someone laughed too loud near the bar. A waiter walked past with a tray of champagne flutes balanced perfectly on his hand like nothing was wrong, like the world was still operating exactly the way it was supposed to. Then someone saw it. Then everyone did. The officers' club went quiet in that specific way people go quiet when they do not want to be involved, but also cannot look away. That particular kind of silence that settles over a room when something has shifted and nobody wants to be the first person to acknowledge it. I lifted the napkin slightly and pressed it under my nose. Warm blood soaked into the silk. Expensive. Of course it was. My sister would not celebrate her promotion anywhere that did not cost more than most people monthly rent. The napkin was probably hand-stitched by someone in a country I would never visit, folded by staff who were paid to be invisible, and placed on my lap by a waiter who had been trained to anticipate needs before they were spoken. And now it was soaking up my blood like it was designed for exactly that purpose. Jesus, someone whispered nearby, not concerned, disgusted. I could tell the difference because I have heard both sounds thousands of times in my life and they do not sound anything alike. Concern has a warmth to it, a softness that sits in the back of the throat. Disgust is sharper, colder, it comes from the chest and it cuts through the air like a blade. This was disgust. I kept my posture straight, back aligned. Shoulders relaxed, breathing controlled. I have had worse episodes than this. Still, I could feel the stares, not curious, not worried, embarrassed for me, for themselves for being near me, for being associated with whatever was happening at my table in a room full of people who were supposed to be impressive. Before I could adjust, the napkin, my father's hand came out of nowhere and grabbed it hard. "Give me that," Clayton muttered through his teeth. He yanked it away and immediately replaced it with another clean white napkin, pressing it against my face like he was trying to erase me. Like if he pressed hard enough, the blood would go back inside, and the scene would unmake itself, and we could all pretend it never happened. "Keep it down," he said quietly, but not quietly enough. "You are making a scene." I did not argue. I let him press the napkin against my nose like I was a problem he could physically contain. His fingers were rough against my upper lip. I could feel the calluses on his hands from years of gripping things that were not meant to be gripped gently. He held the napkin with a pressure that was just shy of painful, like he was trying to stop the bleeding through force rather than care. Across the table, Beatrice exhaled sharply. Not worried. Annoyed. "Of course," she said, shaking her head slowly the way someone does when they are confirming a long-held belief about another person. "You always find a way, do not you?" Her uniform was perfect. Every line crisp. Every medal placed exactly where it should be. Her new rank sat on her shoulder like it had always belonged there, like it had grown there naturally, like the fabric of her uniform had simply organized itself around the weight of that insignia until it became part of her body. She did not even look at me when she said it. Tonight of all nights, she added, lifting her glass like I was just background noise. A slight disturbance in an otherwise perfect evening. "You could not wait until we got home." A few officers chuckled awkwardly at nearby tables, not because it was funny, because they did not want to be on the wrong side of her. That is the thing about rooms like this. People do not laugh because something is genuinely amusing. They laugh because they are calculating distance. They are measuring the space between themselves and the person with power, and they are making sure that space stays wide enough to be safe. I adjusted the napkin myself this time, taking it back from my father's grip. My fingers touched his for half a second and I felt him flinch, not because I scared him, because touching me in this state made him uncomfortable. Like my illness was something that could transfer through skin contact. "I am fine," I said. Simple. Flat. Done. Beatrice finally looked at me. Her eyes scanned me the way people check a stain on a carpet, not with concern, with irritation. Like the stain was ruining the aesthetic of an otherwise well-designed room. "You are not fine," she said. "You are a liability." There it was, straight to the point, no wrapping, no softening, no attempt to make it sound like anything other than what it was. A liability, not a person, not a sister, not a daughter, a liability. Something that adds risk without adding value. Something that costs more than it produces. Something that needs to be managed, minimized, contained. I almost appreciated the honesty. Almost. Dalton leaned forward beside her, resting his elbows casually on the table like this was just another business meeting. like we were discussing supply chain logistics instead of my existence. He smiled at me. That kind of smile that pretends to be supportive but is already calculating your value. The kind of smile that is really just a mask for assessment. Every line on his face arranged itself in a way that suggested warmth, but if you looked closer, and I always look closer, there was nothing behind it. No concern, no empathy, just evaluation. Actually, he said, sliding a folder across the table toward me, this is exactly what we wanted to talk about. The folder stopped right in front of me. Clean, official, pre-prepared. I could tell it had been assembled with care because the edges were aligned perfectly and the tab was positioned just so. Someone had put time into making this look professional. Someone had wanted it to feel official before it was even opened. I did not open it yet. I think it is time we made things easier for everyone, Dalton continued. Especially you. My father nodded immediately, like this had been rehearsed, like they had sat in a room somewhere and practiced this moment until the words felt natural. Your condition is not improving, Clayton said, and managing your affairs is getting complicated. Complicated. That is one way to describe it. Another way would be honest. Another way would be to say that every time something goes wrong with my body, it becomes a logistical problem for them. Another way would be to admit that they are tired of dealing with it and they want a legal mechanism to make it go away. But he did not say any of that. He said complicated, because complicated sounds better. Complicated sounds like an administrative issue. Complicated removes the human element entirely and reduces me to a file that needs sorting. Dalton tapped the folder lightly with one finger. Medical and financial power of attorney, he said. Standard procedure. Just sign it and the family can take care of everything. No more stress for you. Beatrice took a sip of her drink, watching me over the rim of her glass. No more mistakes, she added. I finally opened the folder. The document was clean, legal language tight and efficient. They had done this properly, too properly. Every clause was worded with precision. Every section was organized in a way that suggested thoroughness. This was not something they had thrown together. This was something they had paid someone to construct carefully. Someone who understood how to build legal documents that do not leave room for argument. Grandfather's trust was mentioned on page 2. There it was. The real reason, not my health, my access. The trust was not just money. It was control. It was a structure that had been built over decades to hold assets that required specific clearance to manage. Assets that were connected to things I was not supposed to talk about. Assets that my family wanted but could not reach without my signature. My name on that document would give them everything. My health would give them the excuse, and my silence would give them the cover. I closed the folder slowly. The room was still watching, trying not to look like they were watching. I could feel the weight of their attention pressing against the back of my neck like a hand I could not see. I placed my hand on top of the paper. Dalton leaned in a little closer. Look, he said, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor, like he was offering me a way out of a problem I was too weak to solve on my own. You do not have to carry this alone. You are not built for it. Not built for it. That phrase again. I have heard it my entire life in different forms from different mouths, but always with the same underlying message. You are not enough. You do not have what it takes. You are structurally insufficient for the demands of the real world. My father let out a short laugh, not loud, not polite, just enough to carry. Sign it, Clayton said, leaning back in his chair. Let us stop pretending. I did not move. He tilted his head, studying me like he was already tired of the conversation, like he had already decided how this would end, and my only role was to confirm it. You are sick, he went on. You always have been. A few people shifted in their seats. No one interrupted him. You are not fit for real work, he added. You would not last a day on an actual warship. There it was. The line he had been waiting to deliver. The one he had been holding behind his teeth all night like a card he was saving for the exact right moment. He had been carrying that sentence since before we sat down. Maybe since before I arrived. Maybe since before the invitation was extended. Stop embarrassing this family, he said, his voice sharper now. We have a military name to uphold. Do not drag it down because you cannot keep yourself together. Silence hit the table harder than any shout could. No one defended me. No one ever does in rooms like this, because defending the weakest person in the room does not earn you anything. It does not build alliances. It does not create leverage. It just associates you with failure, and in rooms full of people who have built their entire identities around success, association with failure is the one thing they cannot afford. I felt the blood slow under the napkin. My breathing stayed even. No shaking. No tears. I reached up, removed the napkin from my face, and folded it neatly. Careful, precise, like it mattered. Like the way I handled a bloody napkin was somehow relevant to anything. But I did it anyway because control is a practice, not a feeling, and right now I needed to practice. I placed it on the table. Then I picked up the document. For a second, Dalton looked relieved. My father leaned forward slightly. Beatrice did not smile, but her shoulders relaxed just a fraction of an inch. I folded the paper once, then again. Then I slipped it into my coat pocket. The relief disappeared. "What are you doing?" Dalton asked. I looked up, not angry, not emotional, just steady. "I will think about it," I said. My father's jaw tightened. "That is not how this works," he snapped. I held his gaze. For the first time that night, I did not look like the weakest person in the room. "I know exactly how this works," I said. Calm, clear, final. Something shifted, not loud, not obvious, but enough. Beatrice's expression changed just a little. Confusion. She was not used to resistance, especially not from me. I had never resisted before, not at dinners like this, not in rooms full of people, not when the pressure was collective and the expectation was compliance. I had always done what they asked, always signed what they put in front of me, always accepted the role they assigned me. But tonight was different, and she could feel it even if she could not explain it. I leaned back in my chair. The room did not relax. If anything, it got tighter because now they did not know what I was going to do next, and that made them uncomfortable. Good. Have you ever sat in a room where everyone thought you were the weakest person there, while you were the only one who actually knew how everything worked? The phone in my inner pocket vibrated. 3 short pulses. Not random. Not a message. A code. I did not check it right away. I did not need to. There are only a few systems that use that pattern, and none of them send anything unless something has already gone very wrong. I kept my face neutral, but inside the calculation had already started. This dinner. This conversation. This entire little performance they had arranged. It was about to become irrelevant because whatever was coming next was bigger than all of them combined. The vibration in my pocket from last night still echoed in my head, blending into the steady beeping of the heart monitor beside my bed. Same rhythm. Different meaning. I lay still, staring at the ceiling of the hospital room. Clean white. No personality. No distractions. Just the kind of place where your body gets fixed while everything else keeps moving without you. The walls were painted in that specific shade of white that institutions use when they want to convey cleanliness but not comfort. The kind of white that absorbs sound and reflects light in a way that makes everything feel slightly artificial. Like you are existing inside a manufactured environment designed for function rather than humanity. A tube ran from the IV stand into my arm. Dark red flowed slowly through the line. Controlled. Measured. Necessary. Routine transfusion. I watched it move through the plastic tubing with a kind of detached fascination. That blood was not mine. It belonged to someone else. Someone who had sat in a chair somewhere and let a needle draw it from their vein so it could travel through a system of tubes and bags and refrigeration units until it ended up here. Inside me. Keeping me alive. There is something strange about being kept alive by a stranger's blood. It makes you think about dependency in a different way. About how none of us are really self-sufficient no matter how much we pretend otherwise. The nurse had already checked my vitals twice this morning. Stable. That is the word they always use when they do not want to promise anything. Stable does not mean improving. It does not mean recovering. It just means not getting worse right now. It is a word designed to manage expectations while revealing nothing. I shifted, slightly careful not to pull the line. My phone rested on the tray beside me. Silent now, but I had not forgotten the pattern. 3 short pulses. Joint Chiefs level priority. Not something that waits. Not something that gets filed for later review. Something that demands immediate attention from someone with specific clearance and specific capability. The door opened without a knock. Of course, I did not turn my head right away. I did not need to. I already knew who it was. "He looks worse in daylight," Beatrice said. Correction, who they were. I turned slowly. Beatrice stood at the foot of the bed, already in uniform. Perfect again. Like she had been pressed into shape this morning just to remind the world she belonged in it. Every crease was intentional. Every button was aligned. Her hair was pulled back in a way that suggested discipline rather than style. The uniform was not something she wore. It was something she occupied. She moved inside it like it was an extension of her body, and her body had been designed specifically for it. Dalton stood beside her holding a leather folder, same one from last night. Different purpose. Different documents inside, but the same energy. the same sense of prepared manipulation, the same feeling that everything had been arranged before they walked through the door and my only role was to play the part they had written for me. You should be resting, I said. Not because I cared, because I wanted to hear what excuse they would use. Beatrice smiled. Not warm, not friendly, just practiced. The kind of smile that has been rehearsed in front of mirrors until it looks natural but never quite achieves it. We are resting, she said. This is light work. Dalton stepped closer, placing the folder on the rolling table next to my bed. We will not take long, he added. We know your time is limited. I let that sit there. No reaction. He opened the folder. Different documents this time, more technical, more urgent looking. The paper was thicker. The print was smaller. The headers were formatted in a way that suggested official business rather than personal request. This is a supply authorization, Dalton said. Medical equipment shipment, high-priority Navy contract. I glanced at the top page, then at the authorization codes, then back at him, and I asked. Beatrice crossed her arms. And you are going to approve it, she said. Using your access. I almost smiled. Secretary-level clearance does not override procurement review, I said. You know that. Dalton nodded like he had expected that answer, like he had prepared for it, like my objection was just another box on his checklist of things to manage. Normally no, he said, but in emergency routing with the right internal tag, it bypasses secondary inspection. Of course it does. There is always a back door. The question is who is allowed to use it, and who is allowed to know about it. And you think I can just push it through, I asked. You already have before, Beatrice said. I looked at her. Really looked this time. Not at her face, not at her posture, her chest. That is when I saw it. The metal, new, polished, positioned carefully on her uniform. Not just any metal. That one. I did not say anything right away. Dalton kept talking. The shipment needs to clear today, he said. Delay costs millions. And more importantly, it affects operational readiness. Operational readiness. That phrase again. Always sounds clean, always hides something dirty. It is one of those terms that gets thrown around in meetings and briefings, and nobody ever stops to ask what it actually means because the phrase itself sounds so official, so necessary, so beyond question, that challenging it feels almost unpatriotic. But I have learned that the phrases people refuse to question are usually the ones protecting the things that cannot survive questioning. What is in the shipment, I asked. Medical filters, blood processing units. Standard issue, Dalton replied quickly. Too quickly. The speed of his answer told me something. People who are telling the truth do not rush. They do not need to. They know the information is solid, so they deliver it at a natural pace. But people who are hiding something talk fast because they are afraid of the silence that follows their words. They fill the space with sound because silence gives the listener time to think, and thinking is the one thing they cannot afford. And you need me because I asked. Beatrice stepped forward this time. Because your job exists for a reason, she said. You sit at a desk in the Pentagon. You move paperwork. This is paperwork. There it was. Back to simple. Back to small. Back to the version of me that fits inside their narrative. The version that does not threaten them. The version that can be dismissed and managed and controlled. I looked back at the medal. Same design. Same ribbon. Same citation. I knew that operation, not from a briefing, from the inside. A windowless room, no natural light. No clock, just screens, encrypted signals, broken comms, a fleet blind in hostile water, and one decision. One sequence of code that either rerouted everything or lost 5,000 sailors in under 10 minutes. I wrote that sequence line by line. No margin for error. No second attempt. No opportunity to test it first. Just knowledge and precision, and the understanding that if I got even one character wrong, people would die, and it would be my fault, and I would have to live with that for the rest of my life, however long that turned out to be. I brought them home. All of them. Every single sailor on every single ship in that carrier group made it back to port because of what I did in that room. And now she was wearing it like she had earned it. Nice medal, I said. Beatrice smiled. Proud of it, are you not, she said. Pacific Operation Intelligence Extraction under hostile conditions. She said it like she believed it, like she had been there. Like she had felt the weight of that moment pressing down on her shoulders while the clock counted down and the screens flickered with incomplete data and the voices on the comms kept asking for status updates she could not provide because she did not have them because she was not there. Dalton glanced at me, watching for a reaction. I gave him none. You are welcome, by the way, she added. That almost made me laugh. Instead, I shifted slightly in the bed, adjusting the IV line. The tube moved with me pulling slightly against the tape on my skin. A small discomfort, but nothing compared to what I was feeling on the inside. Not pain, something else, something colder. Take it off, I said calmly. The room went quiet. Beatrice blinked. What she asked. I looked at her again, direct, steady. You are wearing it wrong, I said. Her expression tightened. It is perfectly aligned, she snapped. I shook my head slightly. Not the placement, I said. The meaning. Dalton stepped in. Let us stay focused, he said quickly. We are not here for this. But Beatrice did not step back. She moved closer. You do not get to comment on things you do not understand, she said. There it was. The assumption. The foundation of everything. You do not understand. It is the phrase people use when they want to dismiss you without having to explain why. It is a door that closes without a lock because it does not need one. The assumption of ignorance is enough to keep you on the other side. I reached over, picked up the top document from the folder and scanned it again. Routing codes, supplier IDs, batch numbers. Something did not sit right, but I did not dig into it yet. Not in front of them, not while they were watching. Not while they were waiting for me to make a mistake they could use. I placed the paper back down. No, I said. Simple, flat, final. Dalton froze for half a second. Beatrice did not. Her reaction was immediate. Excuse me, she said. I am not approving it, I replied. Her jaw tightened. You do not have a choice, she said. I looked at her. I always have a choice, I said. Dalton leaned in, lowering his voice. Let us be realistic, he said. You rely on family support, medical coverage, access. All of that can change. There it was. The real pressure point, not money, not reputation, survival. They were not threatening my comfort. They were threatening my life. They were telling me that if I did not do what they wanted, the resources that kept me breathing would disappear, and I would be left with nothing, with no medical coverage, no access to the treatments that kept my body functioning, no connection to the systems that managed my condition. Just me and my failing biology in a world that does not care about people who cannot pay their own way. Beatrice folded her arms again. Dad already talked to the board, she said. Your special medical coverage. It is not permanent. I held her gaze. You are threatening to cut off my treatment, I said. I am stating facts, she replied. No hesitation, no shame. No attempt to soften it or reframe it as something other than what it was. A threat delivered with the confidence of someone who believes they have all the leverage and none of the risk. I nodded once. Processing, calculating, not the threat itself. I had already anticipated that. I was calculating the fact that she said it out loud. In a hospital room, while I was connected to machines, while I was physically vulnerable. That told me something about how safe they felt, how untouchable they believed they were. And that told me something about how much they did not know. Then I leaned back slightly against the pillow. Your metal is crooked, I said. Not louder, not sharper, just precise. Beatrice's face changed. Not anger first. Something else, a flicker, because my tone did not match the room. It did not match the situation. It did not match the version of me they believed in. You think this is a joke, she asked. I tilted my head slightly. No, I said. I think you are standing in a hospital room threatening a patient over paperwork you do not understand while wearing recognition for work you did not do. Dalton stepped back. Not far, just enough. Beatrice did not move, but her shoulders were not as steady. You do not know what you are talking about, she said. I did not argue. I did not explain. I just looked at her and held it long enough. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside me. The IV continued its slow, controlled flow. Everything in the room stayed the same except her because for the first time she was not completely sure anymore. I pulled the IV line out myself the moment the nurse stepped out of the room. Not violently, not careless, just quick and clean. The adhesive peeled back from my skin with a sound like a whisper. The needle slid out. A small bead of blood surfaced, then stopped. I pressed gauze over it and taped it down without looking. I had done this before, not often, but enough times to know the mechanics of it. The pull, the release, the pressure, the seal. My hands knew what to do even when the rest of me was running on empty. I did not have time to stay in that bed. I swung my legs over the side, waited half a second for the dizziness to settle, then stood up. Stable enough. Good. The hospital hallway was quiet this early. A few staff members moved through the corridor with the specific kind of tired that comes from working overnight shifts in places where people are always dying or almost dying or recovering from almost dying. Nobody stopped me. Nobody asked questions. People see a patient in a gown walking with purpose and they assume there is a reason. There was. By the time I reached the parking structure, my phone was already in my hand. One secure line. 2 taps. No greeting. Patch me through, I said. A pause. Then a voice I recognized immediately. Location, he asked. Bethesda, I replied. I need clearance to access SCIF Delta. Another pause, shorter this time. Approved. You have 30 minutes. That was generous. I hung up. The drive was quiet. No music, no distractions, just distance closing between me and the only place where the truth actually lives. Underground. The Pentagon always looks controlled on the surface. Clean lines. Predictable movement. Everyone in uniform or business attire, like the system, is running exactly how it should. Like every piece is in its proper place and every person is performing their proper function. It is not. It never is. The surface is a performance. The real machinery operates underneath where nobody can see it. The elevator down to the SCIF did not require conversation. Badge, scan, secondary authentication, a green light, the doors opened, everything changed. The moment I stepped inside, there were no windows, no signal, no outside noise, just systems, rows of terminals. The soft hum of secured servers, air colder than it needs to be. This is where things get real. This is where the performance ends and the machinery begins. I sat down at an open terminal and logged in. Credentials accepted. Access granted. No hesitation. Of course not. I do not get stopped here. I pulled up the shipment file Dalton had shown me. Same routing ID, same supplier, same urgency tag, but this time I was not looking at the surface. I opened the backend logs. Then the procurement chain. Then the supplier verification layer. That is where it started to break. The company name matched Clayton's firm, but the material origin codes did not. They were rerouted, masked, disguised behind layers of digital obfuscation that would have been invisible to anyone who did not know exactly what to look for. I ran a deeper trace. 3 layers down, the origin flagged. Not approved. Not even close. Cheap imports. Unverified manufacturing. No military-grade certification. I leaned back slightly, letting the data settle in front of me. Then I kept digging. Batch numbers, cross-referenced, failure reports. Buried, not deleted. Hidden. That is the mistake people make. They think hiding data is enough. It is not. Not when someone knows where to look. Not when someone built the systems that other people use to hide things. I opened the quality control logs. Test results came up. Filtration efficiency below standard. Contamination risk flagged. Rejected. But the rejection never made it to final review. It got overridden manually. I checked the authorization signature. Dalton, of course. Then I checked the financial trail. Transfers routed through shell accounts. Clean, too clean until you follow the timing. Payments hit accounts just before each override. Large amounts. Consistent pattern. Money moved in one direction. Approval moved in the other. Cause and effect dressed up as coincidence but not convincing enough to survive actual scrutiny. I did not need to guess anymore. They knew every failed test, every contamination risk, every corner they cut. They signed off anyway. I stared at the screen for a second longer, not surprised, just done confirming. Then I pulled up the distribution map, where the shipment was going. Routes lit up across the display, multiple destinations. Then one stood out, highlighted, priority delivery. Carrier strike group out in the Pacific, active deployment. Thousands of personnel. I zoomed in. Timeline. The shipment was not sitting in storage, it was already moving. Fast, scheduled for immediate integration into onboard medical systems. That is when the system flagged it. A red warning flashed across the screen. Not subtle, not quiet. Critical alert. Contamination risk high. Deployment status active. Time to arrival under 6 hours. I stared at it. 6 hours. That is all the distance between a bad decision and a mass casualty event. 6 hours between paperwork and body bags. 6 hours between a signature on a form and families receiving notifications that someone they loved was not coming home. I exhaled slowly. No panic, just clarity. My father was not just stealing money. He was gambling with lives. Dalton was not just cutting corners. He was pushing defective blood filtration units into active naval operations. Units that would be used on sailors who were already in dangerous conditions. Units that would fail when they were needed most. Units that would turn survivable injuries into fatal ones because the equipment designed to keep blood clean could not do its job. Beatrice. She did not even know what she was protecting, or maybe she did not care. Either way, it did not matter anymore. I moved my hands back to the keyboard. Fast, precise, no wasted motion. I accessed the highest authorization layer available to me. Encrypted command input, restricted, monitored, but not blocked. I typed the override sequence line by line, each command built on the last. Supply chain node identification, authorization escalation, lockdown protocol. I paused for half a second, not because I was not sure, because once I hit enter there was no going back. This was not just a delay, this was exposure. Financial systems, logistics networks. Everything tied to that shipment would freeze, and when it froze, people would start asking questions. Good, I hit enter, the system processed. 1 second, 2, then confirmed. Supply chain locked, distribution halted, authorization access revoked. The red warning shifted from active threat to contained. I leaned back in the chair. The hum of the room did not change. The systems kept running. But somewhere out there, a shipment stopped moving. And somewhere else, people who thought they were untouchable just lost control. They thought they could use my condition against me. Thought I was too weak to push back, too dependent, too easy to manage. I looked at the screen one more time, at the frozen network, at the flagged accounts, at the signatures tied directly to my family. They have no idea what they just triggered, because in their world, power looks like rank, like uniforms, like medals. In mine, power is access. And access decides who lives and who does not. The confirmation screen was still glowing in front of me when my vision started to blur. Not dramatically, not all at once, just wrong. The edges of the screen softened first. Then the center lost focus like someone had quietly turned down the resolution on reality. I blinked once, twice, did not fix it. My hand tightened slightly on the edge of the desk. Something was off. My breathing shifted, shallow then tighter. I sat still waiting for my body to correct itself. It did not. A pressure started building in my chest. Not pain, not yet. Restriction, like my lungs had decided they were not interested in doing their job anymore. I exhaled slowly, then tried to take a deeper breath. It did not go all the way in. That is when I knew, not fatigue, not the usual. This was chemical. My eyes flicked back to the screen. Medical supply chain, hospital network, batch numbers. A thought connected faster than my body could react. The transfusion this morning. Same supplier, same network, same corruption. I pushed myself up from the chair, too fast, the room tilted. My hand shot out, catching the edge of the terminal. Steady, stay upright. Think. I reached for my phone, unlocked, dialed. No hesitation. Medical emergency, I said the second the line opened. Anaphylactic response. Pentagon SCIF access level. I need immediate extraction to Bethesda. My voice did not sound like mine. Too tight, too controlled. Like someone had wrapped a band around my throat and was slowly pulling it closed. The operator did not ask questions. Stay where you are. Response team en route. I ended the call. My throat tightened next. Swallowing became difficult. Airflow dropped again. Faster this time, I moved toward the exit. Each step felt heavier than the last, not weak. Delayed. Like my body was running on bad signal. Like the connection between my brain and my muscles had started to lag. By the time I reached the elevator, my fingers were numb. I pressed the button. Waited. Too long. The doors opened. I stepped in. The ride up felt longer than usual, or maybe my body just did not have time left to process it normally. By the time I got out, the hallway lights were too bright. Voices sounded distant, like they were coming from behind glass. Someone said my name. I did not answer. I kept moving. Then everything dropped. Not a fall, more like the ground came up faster than expected. The next thing I registered was noise, sharp, urgent, controlled chaos, blood pressure dropping, airway compromised, get epinephrine ready. Hands moved around me, fast, efficient, professional. People who were trained for exactly this kind of moment, performing exactly the way they were trained to perform. I did not open my eyes right away. Did not need to. I knew where I was, Bethesda. Emergency room. Someone pressed something cold against my arm. Another injection. My chest tightened harder, then loosened slightly. Air came in again, not enough but more than before. Stay with us, a voice said. I did not respond. Not because I could not, because I was focusing on breathing. In, out, in, not enough but still there. Time moved differently after that, not slower. Fragmented. Pieces instead of flow, voices, footsteps, monitors. Then one sentence cut through everything. We need compatible blood now. Another voice answered. Type is rare. Inventory is low. A pause, call family, that landed. Not emotionally, logically, of course. Genetic match, fastest option. I tried to open my eyes, they did not cooperate. My body was still deciding whether it wanted to stay functional. Footsteps approached. Different ones, not medical, heavier, confident. Then a voice I knew too well. What is the situation, Clayton? Of course he came, not for me, for control. The doctor spoke quickly. She is in critical condition. Severe allergic reaction. We need an immediate transfusion. You and your daughter are the closest genetic matches. Silence. Short. Measured. Then my father spoke again, calm, too calm, and if we do not, he asked. The doctor hesitated. That is not really an option, he said. Without blood support, she will not. I understand the medical side, Clayton cut in. I am asking about the outcome. Another pause, then reluctantly, she will not survive. There it was, clear, final, no room for interpretation, no room for hope. Just a statement of fact delivered by someone who had no reason to be anything other than honest. I forced my eyes open just enough to catch shapes, blurred but recognizable. My father stood at the foot of the bed, Beatrice beside him, arms crossed, watching, not rushing, not moving. Dalton was not there. Smart. Clayton reached into his jacket, pulled something out. Paper, of course. Even now, even here, with my body failing in front of him, he still had paperwork ready. He stepped closer. Not to help, to position himself. Before we proceed, he said, holding the document up slightly, there is a small matter to settle. The doctor stared at him confused. Sir, this is not the time. It is exactly the time, Clayton replied. His voice did not raise, did not need to. Confidence like that does not shout, it assumes. This is a power of attorney, he continued. Medical and financial. She signs. We move forward, we help. We stabilize the situation. I felt my fingers twitch. Weak but still mine. The doctor looked between him and me. She is not in a condition to consent, he said. Clayton smiled, not wide, just enough. She understands, he said. Do not you, I tried to focus. The paper, the pen, his hand so close, always controlling. Beatrice finally spoke. You heard him, she said. This does not have to be difficult. Her tone was almost bored, like this was just another inconvenience in a day full of them. Sign it, she added. Or do not. Your choice. Choice, that word again. My chest tightened. Air in, air out. Barely. Clayton leaned closer. I could see his face now. Clearer, colder. This is simple, he said quietly. You are not going to make it without us. No emotion, just fact. We are not wasting good blood on a lost cause, he added. The doctor stepped forward. Sir, that is not how this works. Clayton did not even look at him. She has been a burden her entire life, he said. Weak, dependent, always needing something. Each word landed clean. No hesitation. No return on investment, he finished. Investment. That is what I was to him, a failed one. He straightened slightly, held the pen out. Sign, he said. My hand did not move, not toward the pen, not toward anything, just stayed where it was, still. Beatrice sighed. Unbelievable, she muttered. Clayton's expression shifted, not angry, annoyed, like I was still refusing to cooperate at the worst possible time. Then he leaned in closer, lower so only I could hear. You are already gone, he said quietly. This is just paperwork, then louder. If she does not sign, he said, stepping back, we are done here. The doctor looked stunned. You are refusing to donate, he asked. Clayton shrugged. She made her choice. Beatrice did not move, did not argue, did not hesitate. She just stood there, agreeing silently, completely. My vision darkened again, faster this time, not gradual, closing like a door. The monitor beside me started to change, beeping sharper, more urgent. Voices picked up, movement increased. But none of it mattered because the last thing I saw was my father lowering the pen and walking away. The moment his hand started to reach for the door, the sound hit. Sharp, loud, unmistakable. A piercing alarm ripped through the hallway outside. Code red. Not a drill, not a mistake. Real. The entire floor shifted in seconds. Footsteps accelerated. Voices changed tone. Doors slammed somewhere down the corridor. Even through the haze in my vision, I recognized it immediately. Security lockdown. Clayton paused. His fingers stopped just short of touching the door handle. What the hell is that, he muttered. No one answered him because the answer came fast. Heavy boots, multiple, closing in. Then the door exploded open. Not pushed, not opened, forced. Wood slammed against the wall hard enough to echo. Not doctors, not hospital staff, armed agents. Black tactical gear, controlled movement. Weapons up but disciplined. NCIS. They moved like a unit. 2 stepped in first, clearing corners. 2 more followed, positioning themselves instantly around my bed. Angles covered. Entry secured. No hesitation, no confusion. The room changed in less than 3 seconds from medical emergency to controlled operation. 1 agent moved to my left side, another to my right. A third positioned himself directly between me and Clayton. A wall, solid, unbreakable. What is this? Clayton snapped, stepping forward, authority back in his voice. The version he uses when he expects people to listen. I'm a retired colonel. Stop. The word cut him off clean. The man who said it stepped in last. No rush, no wasted motion, different presence. Leader, NCIS team lead. His eyes scanned the room once, everything processed, everything understood. Then he focused on Clayton. You need to step back, he said. Not loud, not aggressive, just final. Clayton did not move. You do not give me orders, he shot back. This is my daughter. The agent did not even let him finish. He stepped forward, close enough, controlled. Then with one quick motion, he knocked the paper out of Clayton's hand. It hit the floor, ignored. The pen followed, rolled under the bed. Gone. What the hell do you think you are doing? Clayton snapped. The agent's expression did not change, not even slightly. Securing a federal asset, he said. The word landed. Asset, not patient, not daughter, not civilian, asset, something with value. Something that belongs to something larger than the people in this room. Something that will be protected regardless of what the people in this room want. Clayton blinked, just once, like his brain needed a second to catch up. Beatrice stepped forward, immediately pulling out her military ID. Stand down, she ordered, flashing the badge. I'm an active duty major. You are interfering with a lower it. The agent did not even look at her ID. Beatrice froze. Not fully, but enough. I said lower it, he repeated. Same tone, same control. She hesitated. Then slowly, reluctantly, her hand dropped. That was the moment, the shift, not loud but real, because for the first time her rank did not matter. Clayton tried again. Different angle. You are making a mistake, he said. She is in critical condition. We were handling it. No, the agent said, still calm, still precise. You were not. Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable. Then the agent's gaze hardened just slightly, enough to make the point clear. From this moment forward, he said, no one approaches this bed without authorization. He turned his head slightly, addressing his team without looking away from Clayton. Lock it down. Yes, sir. Two agents adjusted positions, closer, tighter, no gaps. Weapons stayed low but ready, not threatening, prepared. Clayton looked around the room, then back at the agent. You do not understand, he said. I am her father. The agent finally reacted to that. A small shift, not respect. Recognition. Then I am aware, he said. That was it. No apology, no adjustment, just acknowledgement. Beatrice stepped forward again. Lower this time. What is she to you, she asked. The question came out sharper than she intended. The agent looked at her, really looked this time, measured, cold. Then he answered, protected, one word, enough. Beatrice did not respond, did not have anything to say because that word carried weight she could not match. Clayton's voice dropped lower, more controlled. On whose authority, he asked. The agent did not answer right away. He let the silence sit. Then above yours, he said. That was the end of it. Clayton's posture changed, not dramatically but enough, because now he understood something he had not before. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a mistake. This was intentional, targeted. And he was not in control, not anymore. I could still hear everything, even through the fatting edges of my vision, even through the weight pressing down on my chest. The room was different now. Safer, not emotionally, strategically, because the variables had changed. Clayton was not the one deciding outcomes anymore. The agent stepped slightly to the side, checking the monitors. Vitals, he asked. Unstable, the doctor replied quickly. We still need blood. The agent nodded once, then spoke into a mic on his shoulder. Status. A voice came back immediately. Package secured. Primary inbound. The agent did not react outwardly, but I caught it. Primary inbound. That was not standard. That meant someone important was already on the way. Someone with enough rank to change the parameters of this situation entirely. Clayton heard it too. What does that mean, he demanded. No one answered him because no one needed to. He was already being moved out of the center of the situation, and he knew it. Beatrice looked at me again. Different this time. Not annoyed, not superior. Uncertain, like she was trying to recalculate something that no longer made sense. Good. They thought I had no one. No backup, no leverage, just a sick body in a hospital bed. They forgot something. In their world, power comes from rank, from titles, from what people can see. In mine, power comes from what you control when no one is looking. And right now they were standing in a room controlled by someone else. Not them, never them. Because while they were busy trying to decide whether I was worth saving, they forgot one simple fact. I am the one who decides who gets saved. The silence did not last. It cracked under the sound of footsteps. Not rushed, not chaotic, measured, heavy. Each step hit the floor with purpose, echoing down the hallway like a countdown no one in the room could ignore. Even through the blur in my vision, I felt it. The shift. The agents felt it too. Subtle posture tightening. Attention sharpening. Someone important had just entered the building. The footsteps got closer. Voices outside dropped immediately. People moved. Not told to, just instinct, clearing space, making way. The door did not get kicked open this time. It opened. Controlled. And he walked in. Full uniform. Perfectly aligned. 4 stars on his shoulders catching the light like they were designed to be seen from across a battlefield. Admiral Kenneth Thorne, Commander, Pacific Fleet. He did not look around the room. He did not need to. The room adjusted to him. Clayton moved first. Of course he did. His posture snapped into something close to respectful. Not real respect. Strategic respect. The kind you use when you think you can benefit from it. Admiral Thorne, Clayton said quickly, stepping forward with a smile that did not reach his eyes. What an honor. I was not expecting. He extended his hand. Confident. Eager. Already positioning himself for whatever advantage he thought this encounter might offer. The Admiral did not even slow down. He walked right past him. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Nothing. Clayton's hand stayed in the air for half a second longer than it should have, then dropped slowly. That was the first crack. Beatrice stepped forward next. Faster, more controlled. Sir, she said, straightening instinctively. Major Beatrice. He ignored her completely. The Admiral's focus was already locked on something else. Someone else, me. He stopped at the side of my bed, close enough, clear line of sight. No hesitation, no doubt. He reached up, removed his uniform jacket in one smooth motion and handed it off without looking. One of the agents took it immediately. Then he rolled up his sleeves. Precise. Efficient. Like he had done this before. Like the act of preparing to give part of himself to someone else was routine. He turned to the doctor. Status, he said. The doctor blinked. Clearly thrown off by the sudden presence of someone who could change the outcome of everything with a single word. Critical, he answered quickly. Severe anaphylactic reaction. We need immediate transfusion. Blood type is rare and I am a match. The Admiral cut in. No pause. No question, just fact. The room froze, not from confusion. From impact, the doctor hesitated. Sir, we would need to run confirmation tests. Do it, the Admiral said. Now. His tone did not rise, did not push, but it carried something stronger than urgency, authority that does not get questioned. The kind of authority that exists not because someone demands it, but because everyone in the room understands that resisting it would be more damaging than complying with it. The doctor nodded immediately. Prep for donor, he called out. Everything shifted again. Faster this time. Focused. The Admiral stepped closer to the bed, close enough that I could see his face clearly now. Calm, sharp, no wasted expression. He looked down at me, not like I was fragile, not like I was a problem, like I was someone worth keeping alive. Stay with me, he said. Simple, direct. No softness, but not cold either. Just real. Behind him, Clayton finally found his voice again. Admiral, there has been a misunderstanding, he said quickly. The situation is under control. My daughter and I were already handling. The Admiral turned slowly, deliberately, and for the first time he looked at Clayton. Really looked at him. Measured, evaluated, dismissed. Then he spoke. No, one word, enough. Clayton tried again. Different angle. She's just a sick girl, he said, forcing a laugh that did not land. She works a desk job. This level of response is not necessary. That is when it happened. The shift, not subtle, not controlled. The Admiral's expression changed just slightly, but enough because now there was something behind his eyes. Not confusion, not curiosity. Anger. You think she works a desk job, he asked. Clayton hesitated, just for a second. Yes, he said, low-level administrative. The Admiral stopped talking. The room went silent, not because of volume, because of weight. The Admiral took one step toward him, not aggressive, not threatening, but it closed the distance enough to make the point clear. You have no idea who you are speaking about, he said. Each word landed clean, controlled, final. Beatrice shifted beside Clayton, uneasy. That confidence she carried earlier gone, replaced with something else, uncertainty. The Admiral did not look at her, did not need to, because the next sentence was not for her. It was for everyone in the room. Yesterday, he said, a carrier strike group under my command lost full communication in hostile waters. No one moved. No one spoke. 5,000 sailors, he continued. Blind. Exposed. 10 minutes away from a catastrophic failure. The doctor froze. The agents did not move. Clayton did not breathe. And the only reason they are still alive right now, the Admiral said, his voice tightening just enough, is because the woman in that bed rebuilt their entire command structure in under 6 minutes from a secured underground facility. Silence hit harder than anything else. He let it sit. Then she is the senior strategic architect for the United States Navy, he said. And the only reason half of my fleet is still operational. No one interrupted. No one dared. Because now the truth was in the room and it did not match anything Clayton had been saying. The Admiral turned back to me. Then to the doctor. Take my blood, he said. As much as she needs. No hesitation, no conditions, just action. You do not let her die on my watch, he added. That was it. No speech. No explanation. Just a command. The doctor moved immediately. Prep line, he called out. Clayton staggered back a step, not dramatic, just enough, his face drained. color gone, like something inside him finally understood the scale of the mistake. Beatrice did not step back. She could not. Her legs did not cooperate. She stood there frozen, eyes locked on me, then on the Admiral, then back to me, trying to connect two versions of reality that no longer matched. The weak sister, the one in this bed, the one they tried to control, and the one the Admiral just described. They did not line up. They could not, because everything they believed about me was wrong. The line between us filled slowly. Dark red moved through the tube from his arm to mine. Steady, controlled, no rush, no waste, just flow. The monitor beside me adjusted first, beeping steadier, less sharp, more consistent. My chest followed. Air came in deeper this time, not perfect but enough. I did not move right away. I let the system do its job. Let the blood settle. Let my body catch up. Then I opened my eyes, fully clear. The room came back into focus, piece by piece, lights, ceiling, movement, then faces. The Admiral sat beside the bed, sleeves still rolled up, calm, like this was just another decision in a long day of decisions that most people could not handle. The doctor monitored both lines carefully. The agents held position, and across the room Clayton, standing exactly where he had been. But not the same, not even close. His posture was off. His expression broken, not emotionally, structurally, like something fundamental had shifted and he did not know how to rebuild it. Beatrice stood beside him, still silent. Her eyes locked on the tube between me and the Admiral, then slowly moved up to my face. I pushed the button on the side of the bed. The motor hummed, the backrest lifted, slow, controlled. No one helped me, no one needed to. I sat up straight, stable. The difference was immediate, not just physical presence. Clayton reacted first. Admiral, sir, he said, stepping forward slightly. Voice uneven. I think there has been some kind of misunderstanding. Stop. The Admiral did not raise his voice, did not need to. Clayton stopped mid-sentence, mid-step. Frozen. The Admiral stood up, turned fully toward him. And this time there was no restraint left in his expression, just controlled anger. You said she works a desk job, he said, each word slower now, sharper. Clayton swallowed. I meant no. The Admiral cut in. You meant exactly what you said. Silence. No one moved. The Admiral took one step closer, closing the distance. For the past 18 hours, he continued. My fleet has been operating under restored command because of one person. He did not point, did not gesture, did not need to. Your daughter, he said. The words hit harder than anything else. Clayton's mouth opened, closed. No response came out. 5,000 sailors, the Admiral went on. Alive today because she rebuilt a compromised network under active threat conditions. His tone did not rise. It did not need to. You call that paperwork, he asked. No answer, no defense, because there was not one. She is the reason the Pentagon still has control over multiple active operations right now, the Admiral said. And you stood in this room and called her a burden. The room held that. Let it sink in, let it settle. Clayton did not argue anymore, could not, because now he understood, not just that he was wrong, but how wrong. I watched him, calm, steady, then I spoke. You are right, Dad, I said. My voice was even, no strain, no emotion. I do paperwork. That got his attention. His eyes snapped back to me, hope, just a flicker, like maybe he still had something to stand on. I reached under the pillow. Pulled out the tablet, black, encrypted, secured. I placed it on my lap, activated it. One touch, screen lit up instantly. No delay, no password prompt. I do not get slowed down by systems I built. I tapped twice. Connected it to the room display. The large monitor on the wall flickered, then synced. Data filled the screen, clean, organized, clear. I looked at him, then at Beatrice, then back at the screen. These are the papers I handle, I said. I tapped again. The first set appeared. Procurement logs, supplier chains, batch reports, red flags highlighted. Medical supply shipments I continued, routed through a private contractor. Another tap, names appeared, clear, centered, Dalton, Clayton, signatures, authorizations, stamps, time-stamped approvals. Beatrice stepped back, not by choice, instinct. Clayton did not move. He just stared at the screen, at his own name, at the evidence. I did not rush, did not pile it on, just let it sit there. Let him read it. Let him understand. These units failed internal testing, I said. Contamination risks were flagged and overridden. Another tap, financial trails appeared, clean transfers, then deeper layers, hidden accounts, linked patterns, money moving, millions, tens of millions, funds rerouted through shell accounts. Payments issued before each override. The doctor looked at the screen, then at Clayton, then back again. The agents did not react. They already knew. Beatrice shook her head. No, she said quietly. That is not. It is. I cut in, not louder, just final. I looked at her. You signed off on distribution clearance, I said. You did not check what you were approving. Her face drained, because she knew not the full picture but enough. I turned back to Clayton. The shipment you pushed this morning, I said, was 6 hours away from deployment into an active carrier group. He did not speak. Could not. Those filters would have failed, I continued. And when they did, they would not just break equipment. I paused just long enough. They would have killed people. Silence, heavy, absolute. I leaned back slightly, still holding his gaze. You told me I was a burden, I said, that I could not survive on a real ship. No anger, no bitterness, just fact. But yesterday I added I kept 5,000 people alive from a room you do not even have clearance to enter. That landed deep. Permanent. I looked at the screen one more time, at the evidence, at the truth, then back at him. This is my paperwork, I said. And for the first time he had nothing left to say. The room did not explode. It tightened. Like everything inside it got pulled inward at the same time. The screen behind me still showed the data. Names, numbers, transfers, signatures, no room for interpretation, no way out. That is when Dalton moved, not fast, not obvious, but I saw it. A step toward the door, casual, like he just needed air, like he was not part of the problem. 2 agents moved before he reached the handle. One grabbed his arm, the other drove him down, clean, efficient, no struggle that lasted more than a second. Dalton hit the floor hard, a short grunt. Then metal, cuffs locked. Stay down, one of them said. Dalton did not argue, did not fight, because he knew this was not a situation you talk your way out of. Clayton turned, too late. Wait, he started. No one listened. Beatrice did not move at first. She was still staring at the screen, at the names, at the connections, trying to separate herself from it, trying to find a version where she was not included. There was not one, then she snapped. This is not on me, she said suddenly, her voice cracked, not controlled anymore. This is his doing, she added, pointing at Clayton. And Dalton's. I did not know anything about defective supplies. I just signed off on what I was given. She stepped forward too fast toward the Admiral, grabbing for something stable, something powerful. Sir, I am a decorated officer, she said, reaching for his arm. You know what that means. I would never knowingly compromise. The agent nearest her stepped in, blocked her. Firm. She stopped, but she did not back away. Look at my record, she pushed. Look at my medal, that operation. That is when my attention locked onto it again. The medal, still there, still sitting on her chest like it belonged, like it meant something. I watched it for a second, then I spoke. Take it off. My voice was not loud. Did not need to be. The room heard it anyway. Beatrice froze. Her eyes snapped to me. What she asked. I did not repeat it right away. I just held her gaze. Then take it off, I said again. Same tone, same control. The Admiral looked at me just briefly, then he nodded, once. That was all it took. One of the agents stepped forward immediately. Beatrice reacted. No, she said, stepping back. Too late, the agent reached her. One hand steady, one motion. The medal came off. Clean, no ceremony. No respect, just removal. The fabric of her uniform shifted slightly where it had been pinned. Empty space left behind. The agent held it for half a second, then stepped back. Beatrice stared at the spot like something physical had been taken out of her. Not just metal. Identity. No, she said quietly. Then louder. No, that is mine. Her voice broke. I earned that she insisted. I was there. I leaned forward slightly. Not aggressive, just enough. No, you were not, I said. The room went still again because now it was not about money or fraud. This was personal. You were in the command center after the extraction was already complete, I continued. You showed up for the photos. Her breathing changed. Fast, unsteady. That is not true, she said. Weak. Unconvincing. You do not even know what the operation involved, I added. You repeated the report they handed you. She shook her head. No, she said again. But it did not land because she knew. Deep down she knew. I kept my voice steady. You did not rebuild the signal chain, I said. You did not reroute the fleet. You did not make the call that kept them alive. I paused, just a second. Then I did. That was it. No elevation, no drama, just fact. Beatrice's legs gave out. Not dramatically, just enough. She dropped to her knees, hands hitting the floor to catch herself. Her breathing broke completely now, not controlled, not composed. Raw, her makeup started to run. She did not fix it. Did not try, because there was nothing left to fix. I did not know, she said, her voice shaking. I did not know it was you. I did not respond because that was not the point. The Admiral stepped forward, took the medal from the agent, looked at it for a moment, then spoke. This does not belong to you, he said. Simple. Final. He handed it off, gone, just like that. Beatrice stayed on the floor, not moving, not arguing, because now there was nothing left to defend. Clayton looked between all of us. His control was gone completely. This is being blown out of proportion, he said, forcing something that sounded like authority but did not hold. It is paperwork, contracts, supply issues. That is not treason. The word hung there. Treason. No one rushed to correct him. Because he just said it himself. The agent in charge stepped forward. It is when you knowingly push compromised materials into active military operations, he said. Calm, professional, and when those materials have a high probability of causing loss of life. Clayton did not answer, could not, because now the conversation was not about opinion. It was about consequence. I watched all of it, from the bed, steady, present, every piece falling exactly where it needed to. They built everything on image. Rank, reputation, control, and now every one of those things was being stripped away. One by one. No noise, no chaos, just removal, clean, precise, permanent, and the worst part for them. This was not revenge, this was correction, and correction does not ask for permission. The cuffs clicked shut. Clean. Final. Clayton did not resist when they put his hands behind his back. He did not argue, did not raise his voice. The man who used to control every room he walked into now stood there quiet. Not composed, not strategic, just empty. His hands trembled slightly inside the restraints, not from anger, from realization. Dalton was already on his feet again, held firmly between two agents. No more movement, no more attempts to slip away, just controlled breathing and a face that had already accepted the outcome. Beatrice was still on the floor. She had not moved, had not tried to stand. Her hands rested in her lap now, fingers loosely curled like she did not know what to do with them anymore. The room did not feel tense anymore. It felt settled, like everything had already happened, and now it was just a matter of procedure. Clayton looked at me, really looked this time, not past me, not through me, at me. And for the first time in my life, he did not see something beneath him. He saw something he could not control. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Audrey, he said. My name sounded different coming from him now, not dismissive, not sharp. Uncertain, I did not respond. He took a step forward, the agents did not stop him, not yet. I did not know it would go this far, he said. His voice cracked slightly, not dramatic, but real. This was not supposed to. He stopped himself. We were managing risk, that is all. That is what business is. I watched him, no reaction, no interruption. He swallowed hard. You have to understand, he went on. Everything I did, it was for the family. There it was, the justification. The one people always use when they run out of better ones. I still did not respond because I did not need to. Beatrice finally looked up. Her eyes were red, not from a performance, from collapse. Audrey, she said, her voice barely holding together. We are still family. That word again. Family. It sounded smaller now, weaker, like it did not carry the weight they thought it did. I did not know what he was doing, she added, quickly gesturing toward Clayton. I swear I just signed what they gave me. I trusted. Stop. I did not raise my voice, did not need to. She stopped immediately because the tone was enough. I shifted slightly in the bed, sat straighter, fully present now, no weakness left in my posture, just control. Clayton tried again. Different angle, more direct. You can fix this, he said. Hope, desperation, mixed together. You have access, influence. You can make this go away. You have done it before. You know how the system works. Of course I did, better than he ever would. That shipment, the freeze, the reports, he continued. You can adjust them, delay them, redirect attention. He took another step forward, closer, just say the word, he said, and this ends here. That was the offer, not apology, not accountability, a deal. Even now, even here, I looked at him, calm, steady. Then I spoke. You are right, I said. His face shifted. Hope sharpened. Immediate. He leaned in slightly. I added. That hope grew faster, stronger, because he thought he understood how this worked. I let the silence sit for a second. Then I just will not. That was it. Simple. Final. It hit him harder than anything else had because this was not out of my control. This was not inevitable. This was a choice. My choice. Beatrice shook her head. No, no, you do not mean that, she said quickly. You would not do that to us. Still holding on to that, still believing it mattered. I looked at her long enough, then I spoke again. You stood in this room, I said, and watched him decide whether I was worth saving. No emotion, just fact. You agreed. She flinched, physically, because she remembered every second of it. Clayton stepped forward again, more urgent now. Audrey, listen to me. No, I said, one word, enough. He stopped. Because now he understood something he had not before. This was not a negotiation. I leaned back slightly. Relaxed, in control. You did not want to waste your blood on a sick daughter, I said. Each word clear, sharp, measured. Do not expect me to waste mercy on traitors. Silence. Absolute. No one moved, no one spoke, because that was the sentence. The final one, I lifted my hand slightly. A small motion, nothing dramatic, just enough. The agent in charge nodded. Move. The command went out instantly. Dalton was pulled toward the door first. No resistance. No delay. Clayton followed. But this time he did resist. Not physically. Emotionally. Audrey, he said, voice breaking. Please, I'm your father. The word did not land, not anymore. The agents did not slow down, they pulled him forward, step by step. Beatrice was the last. She tried to stand, failed once, then managed it. Barely. Her legs did not hold steady. Audrey, she whispered. Not loud enough for the room, but loud enough for me. Sister. I did not answer, did not react. Because that word did not belong here anymore. They were moved out one by one. No ceremony, no dignity, just procedure. The door closed behind them, and just like that, they were gone. The room went quiet again, not tense, not heavy, just still. The Admiral stepped forward, adjusted his sleeve, picked up his uniform jacket, put it back on, precise, controlled. Then he turned to me, stood straight, no hesitation, and raised his hand in a formal salute. Clean, sharp, respect, not for rank. Not for position, for what I did. I held his gaze, then nodded once. That was enough. No words needed because everything that mattered had already been said. The monitors continued their steady rhythm beside me. The IV line remained in place. The room returned to normal, but nothing about this was normal anymore, because the people who once looked down at me were no longer part of my world, not by distance, by removal, complete, permanent. And the truth is, the most effective form of revenge is not loud. It does not scream. It does not chase. It does not prove anything. It just lets the outcomes speak. And sometimes the strongest position you can hold is sitting still while everything else collapses. I watched the door close behind them and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no relief, no sense of victory, just quiet. That is the part people do not talk about. They think moments like that come with emotion. Some big release. Some kind of payoff. They do not. Not when you have already processed everything long before it happens. I leaned back against the hospital bed, listening to the steady rhythm of the monitor beside me. My body was stabilizing, but my mind had already moved on. Because the truth is, they did not lose because I was stronger. They lost because they misunderstood what strength actually looks like. My entire life, people looked at me and saw one thing: weak, sick, limited. A problem that needed managing, and to be fair, I understood why. I was not the one running around in uniform. I was not the one standing in front of rooms giving orders. I was not visible. And in most people's minds, if you cannot see power, it does not exist. That is the first mistake. People do not underestimate you because you are weak. They underestimate you because they do not understand your kind of strength. There is a difference, a big one. My sister built her identity around recognition. Rank, medals, approval, everything about her strength had to be seen, validated, confirmed by someone else, my father. Same system, control, money, influence. If people reacted to him, he believed he had power. But here is the problem with that kind of strength. It only works as long as everyone agrees to play along. The moment reality shows up, it collapses fast, because real strength does not come from attention. It comes from function. What do you actually do when things break? That is the question that matters, not how you look, not what people call you, not what is on your uniform. What can you fix when everything is falling apart? That is where I live, not on stage, not in the spotlight, in the system. And systems do not care about appearances. They care about results. That is why I never argued with them, never defended myself, never tried to prove anything. Because proving yourself to the wrong people is a losing strategy. You waste energy. You reveal your position. You play on their terms. And when you play on their terms, you lose every time. I learned that early. So I stopped explaining, stopped correcting, stopped reacting, and I started building. Quietly, consistently, without needing anyone to notice. Because here is the second truth most people miss. If you have to tell people how strong you are not. Real strength does not introduce itself. It shows up when it is needed. And when it does, nobody questions it. That is what happened in that room. Not because I said anything. Not because I demanded anything. But because when everything reached the point where it could not be ignored anymore, they called me. Not her. Not him. Me. That is how you measure value. Not by how loud someone is, but by who gets called when things go wrong. Now here is where this actually matters for you, because this is not about me. It is about a pattern you have probably seen in your own life. Maybe you have been underestimated. Maybe you have been the one people talk over, ignore, dismiss. Maybe someone in your life has tried to control you by making you feel like you need them. That is not random. That is strategy. Control always hides behind "I am helping you." It looks supportive, protective, reasonable, until you realize it only works in one direction. They help you as long as you stay small, as long as you stay dependent, as long as you do not outgrow the version of you they are comfortable with. The moment you do, they push back hard. That is not concern, that is control breaking. And if you do not recognize that, you stay stuck. So here is the part no one likes to hear. You do not fix that by arguing. You do not fix that by demanding respect. You fix that by removing their leverage. That is it. No drama, no speeches, no confrontation, just strategy. You build yourself into a position where they cannot control the outcome anymore. And that takes time. It is not fast, it is not emotional, it is not satisfying in the short term, but it works. So if you are in that position right now, here is what actually matters. First, build something that does not depend on their approval. A skill, a role, a system, something real, something that functions whether they believe in you or not. Second, stop announcing your growth. People talk too early. They reveal plans before they are ready and then they get blocked. Stay quiet. Let them underestimate you. It is an advantage. Use it. Third, pick your moment. You do not push back every time. You do not react to every insult. You wait until the situation matters, until the outcome is real. Then you move. And when you do not argue, you do not explain, you just act. That is the difference. That is what they never understood about me. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought patience meant dependency. They thought control belonged to the person speaking the loudest. They were wrong. Because the strongest position you can be in is not the one everyone sees. It is the one no one can replace. And once you reach that point, you do not need to fight for respect anymore. You do not need to prove anything. You do not even need to respond. Because the moment will come when everything depends on you. And when it does, the same people who ignored you will be forced to listen. Not because you changed who you are, but because they finally understand what you have been all along. I did not win because I had more authority. I did not win because I had a higher rank. I won because I controlled something they did not even understand. That is the part most people miss when they look at situations like mine. They think power comes from titles, from position, from how many people salute you when you walk into a room. It does not. Those things give you visibility. They give you status, but they do not give you control. And without control, none of it holds. I have seen people with perfect resumes fall apart the moment something goes off script. I have seen people with impressive titles freeze when the system they rely on stops working because they do not actually run anything. They sit on top of it, and that works until it does not. My father thought money was power. As long as he could move it, hide it, redirect it, he believed he was in control. My sister thought recognition was power. Medals, rank, validation from people above her. She believed that made her untouchable, but both of them were operating on the same flawed assumption. They thought power is what people see. It is not. Power is what people depend on. That is the difference. And it is a big one, because dependency does not care about perception. It cares about function. When something breaks, who can fix it? That is where real power shows up. Not in meetings, not in speeches. In moments where failure is not an option. That is where I operate, not visible, not loud, but necessary. And necessity is the highest form of leverage you can have. Let me break that down in a way that actually applies to you, because this is not about military systems. It is about how control works in real life. Most people chase position. They want the title, the promotion, the recognition. They want people to look at them and say that person is important, but here is the problem. If your value is based on how people see you, then your power depends on their opinion. And opinions change fast. The moment you are not useful, the moment you make a mistake, the moment someone better shows up, you are replaceable. That is the part no one likes to admit, but it is true. Now compare that to access. Access is different. Access means you understand something others do not. You can operate in a system others cannot. You see patterns others miss. And most importantly, you can fix things they cannot fix without you. That is not about being impressive. That is about being essential. And essential people do not get ignored. They get called every time something matters. That is why when the situation escalated, no one called my father. No one called my sister. They called me, not because I was visible, but because I was required. That is the difference between authority and control. Authority gets attention. Control decides outcomes. And if you want real power in your own life, you need to stop chasing authority and start building access. So how do you actually do that? It is simpler than people think, but it is harder than most are willing to commit to. First, you pick a system, not something random. Something that matters, your job, your industry. A skill that actually connects to real outcomes. Then you go deeper than everyone else. Not surface-level knowledge, not just enough to get by. You understand how it works underneath. How decisions get made, where things break, where the weak points are. That is where value lives. Most people never go there. They stay at the top layer because it is easier, because it looks good, because it is visible, but it is also replaceable. Second, you become reliable under pressure, not when things are easy, not when everything is running smoothly, when something goes wrong. That is when people reveal their real value. Can you think clearly? Can you act without hesitation? Can you fix the problem without creating a bigger one? That is where people earn trust, not through words, through performance. And trust leads to dependency. Third, you stop announcing what you can do. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They talk too much. They try to prove their value before it is needed. And all that does is give other people time to block you, undermine you, or take credit for what you have not even done yet. Keep it quiet. Let your work speak when it actually matters. Because when people discover your value at the exact moment they need it, that is when it hits the hardest. That is when it sticks. Now let us talk about something most people get completely wrong. Fake power. It looks real at first. Titles, money, recognition, influence. It checks all the boxes, but it has one fatal flaw. It cannot survive pressure. The moment something goes wrong, it collapses because it was never built on function. It was built on perception. That is exactly what happened to my father, to my sister. Everything they had only worked as long as no one questioned it. The moment the system pushed back, it all fell apart. Fast, clean, permanent. And here is the part you need to understand. You do not need to destroy people like that. You do not need to fight them. You do not need to expose them. You just need to stop depending on them and let reality do the rest. Because fake power always reveals itself eventually. You just have to be in a position where it does not take you down with it. That is the goal, not dominance. Not control over people. Control over outcomes. That is what matters. That is what lasts. So if you take one thing from this, make it this. Do not build a version of yourself that looks powerful. Build a version of yourself that people cannot operate without. Because when everything starts to fall apart, no one asks who looks important. They ask one question. Who can fix this? And when the answer is you, that is when you stop needing permission. That is when you stop needing validation. That is when you stop being overlooked, not because you changed who you are, but because you built something no one else can replace. When they asked me for mercy, I did not feel angry. That is the part people do not expect. They think betrayal should come with rage, with shouting, with some kind of emotional explosion that proves how much it hurt. It did not, because by the time they were begging, I had already processed everything they did. That is something most people do not understand about betrayal. The real damage does not happen at the end. It happens in small moments leading up to it. Every time you notice something is off. Every time someone crosses a line and pretends they did not. Every time you choose to ignore it because you want to believe it is not what it looks like. That is where the truth builds, quietly, piece by piece. So when the final moment comes, it is not shocking. It is confirmation. That is why I did not react the way they expected. I did not yell. I did not break down. I did not try to hurt them back. Because reacting emotionally would have put me back into their system. And their system only works if you play by their rules. That is the mistake most people make when they are betrayed. They react immediately, loudly. They try to defend themselves, explain themselves, prove they were wronged. And all that does is give the other person control. Because now they know exactly how you feel, exactly where to push, exactly how to manipulate the situation. Emotion makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. That is why I stayed quiet, not because I did not feel anything, but because I understood something more important. Timing matters more than emotion. If you react too early, you lose leverage. If you expose everything too soon, you give them time to adjust, to hide, to spin the story. So I waited. I watched. I let them believe they were still in control, and the entire time they were building the case against themselves. That is the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is emotional, fast, messy. You want them to feel what you felt. Justice is controlled, patient, clean. You do not need to hurt them. You just stop protecting them. And that is exactly what I did. I did not destroy my father. I did not destroy my sister. I removed myself from the system that was protecting them. And once that protection was gone, reality took over. That is something you need to understand. You do not need to win against people who betray you. You just need to stop holding them up. Because most people do not stand on their own. They stand on what others allow. Take that away and they fall. Now let us talk about the part people struggle with the most. Family. Because that word gets used as a shield for behavior that should not be tolerated. They are your family. You only get one. You should forgive them. That sounds good. It sounds reasonable. But here is the truth. Family does not give someone the right to damage you. It does not give them access to your decisions, your resources, your life. And it definitely does not mean you have to accept betrayal just because it comes from someone with your last name. That is not loyalty, that is submission. And there is a difference. A big one. So how do you actually handle betrayal the right way? Not emotionally, not dramatically, strategically. First, you document everything, not in your head, not based on memory. Real records, real proof. Because feelings do not hold up under pressure. Facts do. Second, you do not react immediately, even when you want to, especially when you want to. Because the moment you react, you show your hand. And once your hand is visible, you lose the advantage. Third, you let them keep going. This is the hardest part. Watching someone continue to lie, manipulate, push boundaries, and not stepping in right away. But every step they take builds your position, strengthens your case, makes the outcome cleaner. Fourth, you choose the outcome, not the reaction. Most people focus on getting back at someone. That is short-term thinking. You need to think about where this ends. What do you actually want to happen? Accountability, distance, control back. Once you know that you move toward that outcome, not toward emotional satisfaction, because emotional satisfaction fades, outcomes last. Now here is the part people do not like. Forgiveness. Everyone talks about it like it is required. Like it is the right thing to do. It is not always. Forgiveness is not about being a good person. It is about whether the situation has changed. If someone understands what they did, if they take responsibility, if they change their behavior, then forgiveness makes sense. But if someone only regrets getting caught, if they are only afraid of consequences, nothing has changed. And giving them another chance just resets the cycle. That is what my father did. That is what my sister did. They did not regret the damage. They regretted losing control. And that is not something you fix with forgiveness. That is something you walk away from completely. No explanation needed. No second attempt, just done. Because at some point you have to decide something. Do you want to feel better for a moment? Or do you want to be free long-term? You do not always get both. I chose long-term. And that is why I did not react. That is why I did not argue. That is why I did not give them anything they could use. I just made a decision and let everything else follow. So if you are dealing with betrayal right now, here is what you need to remember. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to win an argument. You do not need to make them understand. You just need to see clearly, act at the right time, and choose the outcome that protects you. That is it. Because in the end, the strongest move you can make is not reacting at all. It is deciding. And once you do that, everything else becomes simple. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what is the most satisfying revenge you have ever witnessed? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this.